Brad Holmes decided to wake up this morning and make some more roster moves. At about 7 a.m. this morning, Brad Holmes decided to make not one move, but two moves to adjust this roster, and both of them have connections to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So let's get into it. Taking a look at what the Detroit Lions have done. Of course, yesterday they signed their 50-man roster. They needed to cut their roster down to 53. They decided to open up three additional roster spots, and they filled one this morning and then got rid of a player on top of it. So let's take a look. Daniel Jackson, the safety from Jacksonville, was the first acquisition made by Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes this morning, and it was a good signing. A 5-year veteran in the NFL, has played 71 games in Jacksonville, made 4 starts for the Jaguars, had 71 tackles, 1 interception, 2 passes defended, and a fumble recovery just this past season. Now, he is not going to be a starter. He is not going to be a player that the Lions want to rely on in the back end of the defense, but his role is going to be a special teams ace. He has been a special teams player for the Jaguars for quite a long time and has been quite good at that role. After cutting guys like Anthony Pittman, cutting guys like Lawrence Strickland, cutting guys like Maurice Norris, who are all very good special team contributors, this is going to be a move that shores that up, that adds a little bit of depth at the safety position, and that's kind of what this role is going to be. He's going to be a little bit of back-end help as a safety 4 or a safety 5, which he is more than capable of playing in that role. It's a 5-year veteran, so you're not relying on a rookie or a second-year player like Strickland or Norris or Hamlet or Kennelly may have been, and you're going to get a lot of special teams versatility, a lot of special teams usage, and this is a move that's going to help Dave Phipp. This is a move that's going to help the Lions special teams. And I think just being a good back end of the depth chart type of safety, I think this is a good move. I don't think it's a fantastic move. I don't think it's going to break the bank. It's not going to put the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl conversation by any means, but a solid move, a cheap pickup, and add safety depth, add some special teams depth, add some versatility. And overall, I think a solid move for a team in Detroit that was a little light at safety, that definitely cut a bunch of players that were quite good on the special teams a year ago. And I think this is a solid move all around. But for the move that you really came here for, the Detroit Lions have traded Tim Patrick, a player that was really good for them last season, right? A player that was picked up off waiver wire, a 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver who, coming off back-to-back ACL tears, back-to-back season-ending injuries, signed a prove-it deal with the Detroit Lions. 1 year, $1.2 million, played 16 games for Detroit last year, had 33 receptions, 3 touchdowns, and I believe over 400 yards for the team. He's a player that was reliable, had good hands, stretched the field at times, made some big clutch catches from Jared Goff, had a connection with Jared Goff, and helped move the offense as a solid wide receiver 3, whereas, Amon St. Brown may have been the chunk play guy. He may have been the reliable guy. Jameson Williams was the big play guy. Tim Patrick was just the third option that, he even said in training camp, it's his job to beat up the third or the fourth cornerback, and he can do that job really reliably. But after struggling in training camp, after the emergence of Isaac T-Slaw, and after really not playing very much throughout the preseason, Tim Patrick was expendable for the Detroit Lions. That leaves their wide receiving core just 5 members, potentially bringing back Jackson Meeks, potentially bringing back a different wide receiver that they saw throughout the season that they wanted to bring in. And the Lions wide receiving core gets just a little bit thinner with the loss of Tim Patrick. Now, the trade is that the Detroit Lions will receive a 6th-round pick in this upcoming NFL draft for the wide receiver, and I think that's good value. I don't think Tim Patrick held much more value than that, and as I said, he is kind of going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to pair up with Brian Thomas Jr., pair up with Travis Hunter. Again, kind of still play that similar role of being a third wide receiver, being maybe even a distraction guy on that Jaguars defense, picking up, 30 catches, 40 catches a season for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is reliable. That is something that NFL teams can use and work with. And I think he's going to be a good fit in Jacksonville. The Detroit Lions used a bunch of picks last year to move around in the draft. So recuperating some of those picks and some of those selections is not a bad move. And I really think that, Isaac T-Slaw just outplayed Tim Patrick's usefulness. And we've talked about it for a while. I talked about it on social media. People have talked about it all over the place, that is Tim Patrick's role still there for the Detroit Lions? And unfortunately, no. He's been replaced by a younger wide receiver who's faster, who maybe has stronger hands, who creates better separation. And as much as I think everybody appreciates Tim Patrick, it's hard to warrant keeping a player like Isaac Tesla off the field when you know he's that good, when you've seen what he can do, when you've seen the plays he's been making and the chemistry he's been building. It's hard to put that player back on the bench for a guy that's on the last year of his contract, a player that's only been here for one season. And as unfortunate as it is, I think it is a little bit of just uh, the system of the NFL. It's a business, and this was a business decision. So with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. That is the quick morning updates for the Detroit Lions. We'll have more probably as the week and as the day goes on. So if there are moves, I will update and let you know. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.